Oh, there it is, right
Yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
No problem. Yeah. That's not. Oh, testing. W.
We need a little soundtrack.
I'm sorry, Richie. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, just.
Oh. So you got it from your end?
So you can make it,
It's
you can
fine.
make it small.
Make it small. Like that. Oh, oh, this small. Oh, so. I can't. It's not. Well, she has another one. Share. I got share the screen. Sorry.
I thought I just let her in. I thought I just let her, she still have control?
Good evening, everyone.
Oh. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay, he said he got you.
Yeah, she's in here. I got it. Uh-huh.
Oh, no, you're going to say that you're actually
Yeah.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here on a rainy night.
Good. Other than that, see you, sir. All right, buddy. Okay.
Hang in there. I don't think we're gonna hit 40 now.
Friday, just since you last 2 months, they hadn't had rain and then tonight.
It's gotta rain, yeah, I was thinking that was coming.
Right around here.
Yeah, in that little corner. That's where it comes from.
That's most important, anyway.
How you doing? Good. How you doing?
Busy day. Oh man, we're in the Pearl Bowl, just like constantly looking at, all right, where are we at now? Where are we at now? You're still He's like, there's a lot of, he's like, so, this is one of those things where but for him, it's just like,
Also, I was trying to avoid using like how it's formed.
Correct. So you have to save it to the laptop. Well, yeah. If you're trying to mail it out, we're gonna have to come back and grab it from the computer and then upload it somewhere else.
Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Isaac Heschel, and I am the chairperson of the CAB committee. I welcome everyone. I thank everyone for coming in this first day of rain that we had in a very, very long time. But all of you who made the effort in this weather to come here, it's greatly appreciated. So thank you all. I see our secretary is not here. Okay. Anita, go for it.
Okay. Honorable Adrian Adams, Tyrell Henderson, and Sheldon Garfield. Okay. Honorable Eric Adams, Darlene Roscoe.
Yes, present.
Okay, great. Amber Adler. Honorable Jeffrey on Aubrey, Louise Manuel. Here. Honorable Cunningham. Congregation by night, Abraham, Chastity, Copley. Copley,
Here.
good.
Cozy.
Blue. I need to learn how to pronounce. Columbia University, Skylar Roth.
Here.
Oh, good. Melissa del Valle Ortiz.
I'm online, I didn't know I was supposed to respond.
Oh, yeah, you can respond. I will catch you later. Honorable Rita Fosella. I know someone. You're from Fosella?
Present.
Yeah, okay. Gregory Hamburg.
Here.
Honorable Vanessa Gibson, Nelson Palacios, Angel Gal Jr. Rhonda Joseph. Honorable Brad Lander, Joshua Pacheco. Honorable Mark Levine, Marielle Ali. She's on. Grace Lavaglio.
She's online. Mariel Ali is online.
Okay, great. She has, yeah, she can be counted. Paul May.
Present.
Honorable Christopher Marte. Morris Heights Health Center, Gideon Dunkley.
Present.
Gideon. Mary Moss.
Here.
Neighborhood Housing Services of Staten Island, Joseph Pierre. Gladys Peña. Dieta Pina.
Yeah.
Honorable Roxanne Persalo. Alex Cuevas.
Here.
Okay. Honorable Antonio Reynoso, Donovan Swanson.
Present.
Honorable Donovan Richards, Susie Tannenbaum. Jackie Rowe Adams is excused. Honorable Althea Stevens, Lamont Carolina.
Present.
Christopher Toomer. Honorable Sandra Ong, Shane Miller. Zimu. No. UJA Federation of Jewish Philanthropy in New York, Abby Rubin Pope.
Here, I'm online.
Okay. United Neighborhood Houses, Kate Connolly.
Here.
United Parcel Services, Samantha Moyal. Honorable Jemani Williams, Elizabeth Kennedy. Anna Zarzar.
Yeah.
Okay. We have quorum. With just the people here, not with everybody online.
Some more surprised than I.
Last time I counted, there was like 10 people.
Miracles do happen once in a while. Great. So we officially have quorum. Thank you, honorary secretary. Moving along, we are going to recognize the election of Amber Adler as the representative for Region 14, NDA 1113 and 15. Amber Adler was a chairperson of the Neighborhood Advisory Board, Brooklyn 15. She exemplifies a rich tradition of compassion that was ingrained in her upbringing as the daughter of a nurse and a veteran. From early on, Ms. Adler was engaged in community services by dedicating time visiting seniors in nursing homes. Now Ms. Adler has volunteered tens of thousands of hours in southern Brooklyn alone and is recognized for her inclusive approach and also including her 2 young sons in her community-focused efforts. As a trusted voice in the diverse communities of the area, she has led impactful data collection during the community needs assessment, showcasing her leadership skills. Notably, in 2023, she also organized a groundbreaking safety event for students at Cunningham Middle School. In her professional career as an executive of 20 years, Ms. Adler has driven growth and change by securing and allocating millions of dollars for education, family services, special needs children, and combating hate crimes. She holds degrees in business and professional communication from Ohio University. We now recognize Ms. Adler, and we welcome you to the board. I'll entertain a motion to accept Ms. Adler to the board.
Motion to accept. Second?
Second, then. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Anyone abstaining? So moved. Welcome to the family.
Okay, I need the names of the person who made the motion.
Okay, motion.
Who second?
I second it.
Yes. All right, you need to say your name and then make the motion because our stenographer is online.
Okay.
And when you speak also, you just say your name.
Ms. Adler, if you would like to address us for a moment. She here? She online?
Oh, Skyler,
Okay, we'll get to, we're gonna recognize now Skylar Ross as the alternate representative for Columbia University Center on Poverty and Social Policy. And I will read you the letter dated November 1st. Mr. Isaac Heschel, Chairperson. Dear Mr. Heschel, pursuant to Article 3, Section 1B of the Community Action Board bylaws for the City of New York, I am designating Skylar Ross as my representative at board meetings from which I am absent. The representative's contact information is as follows. Please let me know if you have any questions regarding the above. Sincerely, Christopher Weimer, Senior Research Scientist and Director of Center of Poverty and Social Policy, Columbia University. Skylar, thank you for being here. Welcome. The members of the board should have had copies of the minutes of the previous meeting dated September 12th. We'll now entertain a motion to accept the minutes of that meeting. Motion to accept,
Motion to accept Donovan Swanson.
seconded by
Laurie Moss.
Moss, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Anyone abstaining? So moved. It gives me great pleasure to ask the very talented artist Sam Mugen to present the financial program quarterly report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all. Testing. Perfect. Good evening. My name is Artis Sanmugen. I am the Senior Director for Grants Management and Revenue at DYCD, and it's my job tonight to present the financial report for this CAB meeting. I'm just going to make this a little larger. All right. So For city fiscal year 25, DYCD has a CSBG budget of $34.9 million. The bulk of these funds are spent on direct services. So program contracts, which is a significant portion of this program, has a budget of $28 million, and that represents 80% of the award. We also spend money to support those direct services in a category called other contractual services at $1.8 million, and that's 5% of the budget. So together with contracts and other contractual services, we have allocated 85% of the award to direct services and activities that support those services. We spend 15% of the award on DYCD staff and personal services. Program contracts, we have quite a few programs that $28 million is allocated amount. The Neighborhood Development Group, which is a category that has 8 subcategories to that, we have $16 million allocated to that. Our immigration programs, we have $2.6 million. Adolescent literacy and adult literacy together rounds out to be about $1.6 million. Our Fatherhood Initiative is 2.7. And our SYP program is $4.4 million. Other contractual services, we have the biggest area there is technical assistance, and then we have some small amounts for fiscal field reviews, fiscal agent services, and other administrative other services. We have spent in the program contracts division, we spent $4.7 million, which represents 17% of the budget. We have allocated, or we have paid to our providers, I should say, $8.7 million. And for folks who are new, you might wonder why our payments are greater than our expenses. And that's because every DYCD provider at the start of the city fiscal year receives an advance for that city fiscal year of about 25% of their budget. So at this time of the city fiscal year, our payments are greater than our expenses. Come January through June, we start to recoup those. So when we close city fiscal year 25, our expenses and our payments will be the same. Other contractual services, we've spent 11% of the budget. And for personal services, we have recorded 0%, and that's just because we're in the final stage of our cost allocation for the first quarter of city fiscal year 25. When we met the last time, we had 0 spending for most of these categories. And since then, we have $4.7 million in program contracts paid, and we've allocated $8.7 million. So the numbers are the same for my first part of the presentation where we're talking about expenses, but we're comparing it to the last meeting because we had 0 expenses at that point in time. The numbers are the same. So for folks who are new to the CSBG reporting, I want to caution that these numbers may look stark, but we have every confidence that at the end of the city fiscal year, we will spend around the burn rate that we usually do every year, which is about 95 to 96%. So please don't be alarmed at the low spending at this point. Bear with us. You'll see better numbers as the year progresses. Yes, I've completed my presentation. I'd love to have some questions.
Can you dive a little bit deeper into what payments, right? Can you dive a little bit deeper into that?
Okay.
So don't be alarmed, because we'll see
Sure.
later in the year, we're in November.
Yes.
Just before you just state your name. I'm sorry, Vermont, Carolina, representing Councilman Rapisi.
Thank you for that question. So for every DYCD contract, not just for CSBG programs, our providers are starting the city fiscal year, they're hiring staff sometimes, or they're ramping up. And because they have an advance, they don't submit invoices on a monthly basis as they should. This is normal for DYCD. Our providers, that's the way they work. They tend to ramp up their expenditures as we get close to the year. So generally for the first half of the city fiscal year, it would the report might look dire as it does now. However, our expenses are $4.7 million, but we've paid out $8.7 million. And the difference between the two is the advances we have given to the providers at the start of the city fiscal year. Provider A is starting their new city fiscal year, they have a budget of $100,000. Before they even submit any expenses, we send them a check for $25,000, so they can start getting the work done. Come January of the city fiscal year, when the provider submits an invoice, let's say for $10,000, our payments unit start to recoup some of that. So when they submit their invoices for July through December, if they submit an invoice for $10,000 every month, we pay them fully $10,000 every month. Come January, when they submit an invoice for $10,000, we start to pay them less so that we can recoup the advance by the time June comes around.
So the fiscal year is not January.
Oh, I'm so sorry, it's July through June.
Exactly.
The city fiscal year is July through June.
So, right, so like,
Oh, wait, what? Oh, yeah. I'm not used to speaking in a box. But, all right, thank you for that and for the clarification. I think some of the problem that I have here, and speaking on behalf of Chair Stevens, is we're looking at a situation where, and we've seen this not just in our district, but across the city, where we're talking about DYCD contracts. They're not being paid out to the providers. And we're not just talking about here or there, we're talking about across the board. And monies that was already allocated through contracts, they applied, they RFP, they did all this stuff, and they got the contract, they've hired the staff is already in place, they're providing the service, and they're not seeing the money. And what we're seeing right now is a deficit. There actually was a report, there was an op-ed that went out last week with Councilmember Brennan and Councilmember Stevens that talked about the procurement process across the city. And so I'm looking at this, I'm like,
That's a very, very valid point. On top of that, DYC is now working in a new city contracting system called Passport. And I can see that you've heard about that. DYCD was one of the last agencies to go to Passport because we didn't want to go in because we knew there were issues. But we are a city agency, a part of a larger city. This is a system that we use, and we are still having issues with Passport.
So I think, not to cut you off,
No,
but I think it's not about, because you have other agencies that are doing what they need to do with Passport, and they are not on the ground like a lot of the providers that are on the ground with respect to the needed services that are provided by our providers. And if they fall through, it's going to be detrimental for the city. And so what I'm looking at here and I'm hearing, and what I'm saying, it's matching on the ground. I was going to say this later on, but there's a disconnect. And there are providers right now that are literally saying to us, we have to choose between payroll and the services. And there's a provider that literally said to us yesterday, because we had hosted a roundtable with nonprofits, I forecasted this out from October, and I told DYCD that I will not be able to make payroll December 26th.
Fair.
This is people talk about crisis and crises in the city.
I get
This is
that.
a big thing that is not being publicized. It's a thing that's not, but our providers that are providing services to migrants, to low-income folks, to disadvantaged people, to, troubled populations. This is a big thing. And we've had several hearings about this as recently as this month, but this isn't matching what I'm seeing.
I understand that. I get that. I will certainly take back your concerns to my superiors who are well aware of it. But other than saying that we have an issue with Passport, that's the only thing I can say at this point. And it's not the answer you want to hear, but I don't have another answer to give you.
So with the administration and with the leadership of, and I don't want to eat up all the time, I know we've got to go on, but this is something that is big because when it comes around, it's going to be too late by the time it hits. But there is, I think, a diligence that needs to be, emphasized.
I get that.
Because, and I know the administration has a lot of things that they're juggling and dealing with right now, but this is something that if the ceiling, we're talking about thousands and tens of thousands of employees that are employed by small nonprofits and large nonprofits. And when this falls, when the floor caves in, there's no turning back. And we won't be able to fill those roles. We won't be able to help them out because they've already let those people go, or those people have already found other employment opportunities. And then we're stuck because we can't pay staff, we can't pay for buildings, we can't pay for lights. And I just want to emphasize this, and I know it's not me trying to attack you.
I know that.
It's
Of
literally
course not. Of course
raising
not.
here's the flag, and it's being waved, and it's red.
And I will raise that to my superiors when I get back in the office tomorrow. And I appreciate you raising that.
I also think it would be important for you, and we'll give you the email addresses of some of the deputy commissioners. Where you-
I think that's a great
You've
idea.
been reaching out to them?
Forget deputies, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let's talk tomorrow, give me the names of the providers you're talking about, and I will work with fiscal to see if we can advance them some money as well. If they're having payroll issues and other issues, we're gonna try to.
I can do that, but it's
I know,
not,
this is-
them. Those are
yeah.
the folks who have a contact with us, but it's a citywide problem, and I think that's the problem that we got to figure out, because, I'm sorry.
That's the problem we have to figure out. I appreciate that, and I really do. But people are talking about, oh my gosh, city of yes, and this and that, and like all these other things, and it's like, but we have folks who are in the field doing work. And when they let those folks go, and obviously we're coming up on holiday times, and these folks are gonna find out the hard way that they will not be paid for the work that they do. And we know, just like our teachers, a lot of our providers and their staff are underpaid for the work that they do in those communities. It's going to hit, and then it's gonna be like, well, what can we do? And it's like, oh, let's have a hearing about it. It's too late, they're gone.
We hear you. I like that you also have the same passion as your boss. You sound kind of like her, Mrs. Frankie. Call me tomorrow.
And in fairness too, if the board would like, we can have somebody more senior than me come in and explain that. So if that's something you'd like, let us know.
Let me rephrase it, someone to complement what you're sharing, because you're
Well,
already,
someone who has more answers. I'm just a
Right.
senior director. I
Not
have
just.
several layers above me who
understood.
make those hard decisions and who need to hear that information. So
Totally
I
understand.
appreciate you raising this, and I will certainly pass it on to my superiors.
So let us perhaps at the next meeting, one of the
I will,
upper
yes,
individuals in the
send an email
hierarchy can join the meeting, and we can have a candid conversation
I think that's a good
and let
idea.
him realize how dire of a situation it is, and it needs to be addressed
I will
ASAP.
pass that on. I will
Thank you very
pass it
much.
on. And thank you for raising that.
Hi, Donovan Swanson, Brooklyn Borough President's Office. I echo a lot of the sentiment, and just also acknowledging you have been transparent about the migration and how much of a challenge it is. So while you have folks representing elected offices, that next meeting should be an opportunity that at this point, because at that point we're already almost halfway through the fiscal year. If we need to have that conversation, let that space be here for our next meeting. More technical, can you speak a little bit more to the fatherhood initiative and why it's 9% compared to the rest of the payments? Because we've already discussed and we know that you issue out 25%, so I would assume, what's the math behind why it's only 9%? And then I would love for you all to share, because I know a big challenge is also providers struggling to submit invoices. So because I'm assuming within that other contractual services, I know, if I'm not mistaken, there is some services to offer technical assistance to providers on the invoicing part, which we acknowledge is not EYCD, that is the providers. I would love to hear, one, just high level, what are you guys currently doing to support those organizations? And also, is it a pattern in some of these contract areas? For example, I would imagine within the neighborhood development group, because it's more contracts, you'll probably have more providers that are struggling, but maybe it's within another one of these categories. We'd love to hear a little bit more again, which specific providers are struggling with the invoicing process,
Okay,
just to make sense of more of these numbers.
so providers by program category.
Yeah, and again, just high level, how are you guys
Sure.
supporting them, whether it be DYCD or through your technical assistance? Because if we're paying these technical assistance contractors money to support them, we really want to understand exactly how are they supporting providers with the
Absolutely.
invoicing process.
Absolutely. I can't tell you right now why the fatherhood payments are only 9%. I will have to go back and get that information, but absolutely, I will have that information for the next meeting. Thank you for your question.
Mari Moss, I just wanted to say, I know that we're, everything that they said in the article that I read this morning, but also like just a proactive plan or a contingency plan. I don't know, contingency plan versus proactive plan, but just something that we can do to override whenever the system, the migrations fail us, that we're able to get the funding to the providers that are needed so that we don't repeat the situation.
I hear you all loud and clear, and I'll make sure that my superiors hear that as well. Please.
So,
When you were scrolling through, when you were giving your presentation, I was trying to like look in. And these glasses are a little bit older. I need to upgrade my prescription. But thank you to the chair for providing me with a copy of this. Can we talk about adult literacy for a second?
Mhm.
So super important. And we did something on this in the council a couple months ago. Can you talk a little bit more about adult, if you have the information in front of you or if you're aware of it? Can you talk a little bit more about adult literacy and kind of where is this in respect to priority?
Just respect to what?
Priority? Yeah.
Okay,
I think what's going on is that we're seeing that there's an increased need for it,
okay,
but we're seeing a lack with both the folks on the ground. Same thing
Sure,
with when I'm
sure.
talking about the other providers. We're seeing a lack.
okay.
But I also
Fair.
want to just kind of figure out what you guys are thinking about this particular topic and how we're also approaching it outside of the quote-unquote migrant crisis. Like, what are we thinking about it with respect to adult literacy in the communities, people who were born here, who live here, who need these services?
Got it.
Because it kind of gets convoluted
Sure.
with the migrant crisis.
So the first thing I can say about adult literacy is that the number you see here for adult literacy is not the entire DYCD literacy program. We are only reporting here on the CSBG funding for that. I no longer work on the expense side, I only work on the revenue side. But when I worked on the expense side, I know that we used to have a budget of about $18 million agency-wide to support adult literacy. You don't see that here because most of that is city tax levy and a very small amount is from the community development block grants. So we have about $18 million spending on adult literacy. If you want some of the more details on that, I'm gonna ask Kathleen to come and talk some more about the adult literacy program in general because that's her area. Is that okay, Kathleen?
I was not prepared to speak about anything in adult literacy, so I don't have numbers on adult literacy.
Not necessarily numbers, but some of the things that we're working, some of the names of the programs we're working on.
Right, so under CSBG funded, the only literacy programs is adolescent literacy, a very small portion of ESOL, which I think it's up there. And then the one NDA adult literacy contract that's in the Bronx. It's only one, that was the only neighborhood that designated a need for adult literacy when we did the needs assessment. So that's what we have here. But the new RFP, that was released and the start date was July 1, those are mixed funding. So the contracts either have a mix, each contract has a mix of CTL funding, CDBG money, and CSBG. So totals and things like that, I can't tell you. I can
It's
tell
at
you.
least $18 million
Right.
overall for all of the literacy programs.
I can tell you we have 41 programs for Benel ESOL. We have 20 programs for ABE HSC. That I can tell you under the new RFP. We just finished offering the last award and they've accepted. Now we're doing the paperwork. So most of I believe, probably about 95% of them are registered The status of their advances, that I don't know, because the fiscal side, programs no longer deals with fiscal, the fiscal side.
Yeah.
Fiscal does all the fiscal work now.
Yeah, thank you for
So,
that. I know you
and
want
then
to-
you have the discretionary funds, which that is still being played out because now there's funding being moved from the adult literacy pot to the adult pilot pot.
So what it makes, and thank you for your contribution. I know you weren't prepared, so thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Would it make sense to actually break that down?
In what sense, because this is, so we're
When you
prepared
said
for
Go ahead.
CSBG.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
what?
So this is CSBG.
This is a
CSBG
CSBG
meeting.
report, it's not
Yeah.
an adult literacy
Yeah.
report. And as you can see here, there's less than $1 million in adult literacy. Adult literacy, DYCD-Y, is about $18 million. It's a drop in the bucket what you see. But if you like, at the next meeting, we can also come with a little chart that says, this is our entire literacy budget, and these are the programs that it funds.
Well, I think it's about the priorities. So I think when we talk about that, right, like when we put our monies where we put our priorities. And for me, when I look at adult literacy and we talk about what's going on in the city with, again, with respect to the migrants and respect to the influx of folks that are coming in, and with respect to that, and then we talk about the parents, this is something that is kind of major. And we heard testimony at the city council level.
Right, so the
That's how
thing is
important
also
this
with
is.
the program areas that are here, that is part of CSBG, that was all done through a needs assessment. The community chose what program areas were needed in their neighborhoods. So that's how we have that, that's how it's distributed. So like I said, with that one lone NDA adult literacy contract we had, so when the needs assessment was done, there was only one community out of our 41 NDAs that said that that was a need. And to be honest with you, what happened with that need in that neighborhood, which when I showed my slides, what happened was is that the needs changed and that was no longer a need in the neighborhood. And they weren't getting, no one wanted to, no one was seeking services.
How
And
do
they
we-
did lots of outreach and they tried.
That's what I was gonna ask, yeah.
Yeah, they did it, and it was BronxWorks, and BronxWorks has the manpower to do
Yeah.
it. And they were not successful in filling those classes. And they gave up the contract.
And if I could also say, as Kathleen said earlier, a new RFP for adult literacy started in city fiscal year 25. But that process leading up to the RFP is a process of engagement with the community. There was a concept paper that was designed. It went out for input to our community members, not necessarily cabinet and that board, but other community members. People contributed that concept paper. It was then, that information that was in the concept paper was then put into the RFP. So I know you're talking about priorities, and it's probably aren't given the priorities exactly, but I just wanted to let you know of how DYCD decides to spend its money on its program. There's a lot of input from a lot of organizations and individuals outside of DYCD.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Artists, thank you for the report. We'll now.
Thank you very much.
We'll entertain a motion to accept the financial program quarterly report. Motion to accept? Mary Moss, motion.
Greg Hamburg, second.
Second by Greg. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Anyone abstaining? So moved. Ebony Jordan Wilson, the Assistant Commissioner of Community Development, will now give the Commissioner's report.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, all members and representatives, for attending tonight. As always, thank you for your efforts and commitment to this important work. I'm pleased to deliver the Commissioner's report. I'll start with CD's work on the Public Safety Initiative, Safe Growth. So as reported previously, Safe Growth is a planning process that brings together residents, local city agencies, and CBOs to develop real-time safety solutions. They provide workshops that cover skills such as crime analysis, neighborhood planning, and project management. Attendees are residents and stakeholders in the focused neighborhoods, including local community-based organizations, resident leaders, public housing development, residents, who have a stake in planning their community safety. Participants in the Safe Growth Workshop develop a community safety plan that is hyper-focused on an area in the neighborhood. The plan is focused on achieving specific outcomes. Often the percent change in violent index crimes or percent change in shootings before and after the implementation of their work. Participants implement their plans and track outcomes, adjusting their plans when they do not meet the intended outcome. Previous Safe Growth plans in other cities have transformed open-air drug markets, sidewalks, parks, and other underinvested neighborhood areas into livable and vibrant community spaces. These workshops are scheduled as follows. So in Far Rockaway, the workshops were September 5th through the 7th, and they will start part 2, January 9th and 10th, 2025. In the South Bronx, the initial trainings happen September 26th through the 28th, and their follow-up meetings will be January 7th and 8th. We're excited to kick off Harlem in February, the 6th through the 8th, and then their follow-up will be April 4th and 5th. CD, Community Development, and the NAB and CAP staff and NAB members have participated in these trainings. The borough managers had their NAB quarterly meetings for the beginning of fiscal year 2025. The boards have started annual elections of the board officers for the year at these meetings. NAB members have been notified that the next community needs assessment will begin in spring 2025. Borough managers continue to table at various community events, recruiting NAB members and sharing DYCD program information. They've also participated in the mayor's town halls across the city. They met with community boards, attended borough board meetings and committees, attended city council hearings and interagency coordinating council meetings. New York State's Empire State Development Agency oversees Connect All, an effort to build New York State's digital infrastructure and connect all New Yorkers through the internet. DYCD has been awarded a Connect All grant from the ESD. We have reached out to eligible providers to seek a community partner to implement a project designed to enhance digital literacy and promote inclusion in high-needs neighborhoods across New York City. The University of Notre Dame's Wilson Sheehan Lab for Economic Opportunities helps service providers apply scientific evaluation methods to better understand and share effective poverty interventions. We're exploring with them the opportunity to conduct a research and evaluation project for our fatherhood and adult literacy programs. DYCD is collaborating with JP Morgan Chase to provide financial literacy services to adolescent literacy and fatherhood programs in January 2025. Our Immigrant Services concept paper has been approved for release. We plan to release the solicitation this month and conduct feedback sessions in the first week of December. We anticipate the fatherhood request for proposals, the RFP, to be approved and released soon for programs under this new RFP to start in fiscal year 26. DYCD has completed making awards for adult literacy services in all but one designated neighborhood tabulation area, and newly funded programs are already underway. That concludes the Commissioner's report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Go ahead.
I have a few questions. First one is
Somebody bring her the mic, please.
I can project a little bit more. What was the name of the?
They might not be able to hear on there. There you go. And just state
I
your
think
name.
it's a little low.
Yeah, just state your name, please.
Can you hear me? Okay. My first question was just, what is the name of the first program you mentioned, SAFE? There's a little bit of feedback, I couldn't hear it.
Safe Growth.
Safe Road?
Excuse me. So Safe Road is the name of the actual curriculum. So
Okay.
the concept is crime prevention through environmental design. So it's basically community residents coming together, and we actually have some members that are part of these teams in Far Rockaway and the South Bronx. And so basically, we had about, in each of those neighborhoods, we had about 20 to 25 community residents that actually participated. They were trained on how to do their community assessment, right? So they're walking around, part of the training, they walk around the neighborhood and kind of assess where there are public safety risks. And so through the 2-day training, I think it was 3 days, 3-day training, they were able to get tools and learn how to properly assess their neighborhood. And then they're charged to create strategies and create a project plan that they want to implement. So they're in the process of connecting and meeting now to talk about their projects, and then the follow-up would be actually talking about implementation and seeing what city resources that are needed to actually fulfill their project. And I know there's some folks, I think Damari, I know she's in the meeting, she's been a part of these cohorts, Anita's been a part of these cohorts. So anything I missed, you guys feel free to jump in.
Okay, that was gonna be part of my next question is, I mean, in the areas that you mentioned, there's a lot of organizations that use DYCD funds for very similar work. And I was wondering how they're being engaged and if there are any thoughts about funding them. Some of them do bits and pieces of this work, oftentimes not funded directly by the city, but by other sources. And so I'm wondering what that looks like to connect the dots.
Yeah. So when we did recruitment, right, we engaged every CBO that is funded by DYCD in those neighborhoods. So the groups, because the groups are made up of what they call insiders and outsiders. So folks that live there, they're the core of this, right? But also the stakeholders that have run nonprofits, run businesses in those communities. We engaged NYPD, it's important for them to be at the table as well. And so we did extensive outreach in each of those neighborhoods to make sure we had a robust group to do this work. And so we. So we also, we have, DYCD is, also has the Office of Neighborhood Safety. So those crisis management programs, they're also a part of this cohort as well. And so this is really an investment to start to just train community residents. Like this is a whole concept, right? To train community residents on how to assess their neighborhoods for any safety risks, and training them to be able to create strategies on how to engage in city systems and how to engage with government to make sure these things are done. It could be anything from there's a park and there's lighting, like dim lighting, and a lot of crime happens over there. So some of those those are things that they kind of tackle and work on, and those are fixes that, let's say, DOT or parks needs to come in and actually fix, lighting and different things like that. It could be as simple as just trash not being picked up at the same time. So great investment, and we definitely engaged tons of all of our partners and community stakeholders.
Thank you for detailing that. I just have a couple more questions, sorry. One is about the digital literacy and inclusion grant you mentioned. Is that going to be one grant citywide or multiple broken up by region?
That we'll definitely have to get back to you on that. I'm not sure.
No worries.
So I will make a note and make sure we get that information to you.
And then last one, at least for now, is you mentioned the Immigration Services concept paper being released, I think later this month. Are there any other concept papers on the horizon?
For CSPG, that will be the last one. Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that is the last one that's on the horizon.
Yeah, so right now, for anything CSPG, well, Immigrant Services is funded through CSPG, so that is that, because we just did literacy, just started, it's brand new, so no concept paper on the horizon. Immigrant Services is now up. And then NDA is just in year 3. So those are our program areas that are covered under this. And for the rest of the agency, that I don't know. So, if
So
there is.
CSPG, it's fatherhood and immigrant services. So we look to have fatherhood concept paper, RFP released, in the next few weeks, hopefully.
Thank you very much. Donna?
Hi, Donovan Swanson, Brooklyn Borough President's Office. Super excited to hear about potential financial literacy programming, but I feel like it was maybe also the volume is a little distorted. Can you speak a little bit more to that? You said it's anticipated to start in January 2025. I'm just going to list some questions, sorry, just so it's all in one. Are you all partnering with Department of Consumer and Worker Protection? Just because they did just have the Secure the Bag event where we did hear testimony on the need for financial literacy for young people, so I'm just curious if there's any partnership there. Are you guys leveraging any private partnerships with local banks and things like that? We heard about a lot of innovative models, some being local banks having hours in school buildings and even employing young people to be bank tellers. So I'm just thinking, again, when we talk financial literacy, how in depth are we going to go, or is this just going to be under CSBG programming and it's only going to be a slither of a model? Because I do think DYCD should be exploring its own separate contract and programs for financial literacy. And if you could talk about where the curriculum is coming from. I know I threw a lot at you, so yeah.
Love it. All right. So, as far as DWCP, I think that's the acronym, right? So we work closely with them. So under our CSBG and our NDA program, we have our Healthy Families Initiative, and they definitely stay connected to our programs. We make sure that they present to them, they present directly to our providers. We share all of their resources, all of their upcoming workshops and events to make sure that all of the clients that participate in CSBG programs are aware, and we share that information. So we have a great working relationship with them. What I mentioned in this report is that we are partnering. JP Morgan Chase reached out to us and wanted to offer some free services for our programs. And so they're going to provide financial literacy services we're piloting it with adolescent literacy programs and fatherhood programs in January. And so once we do that, we'll see what makes sense, what other program areas make sense to move on. We would love to have a full DYCD financial literacy program if we had the funding. And so what we do is basically find these resources and partnerships, whether it's private, whether it's our sister agencies, to make sure that we're informing the community. So DYCD is an ally, and we're making sure that we're getting the information out to our network and all of the folks that are part of our systems.
Thank you for that response. All I ask is in the selection of, because I don't know if it's going to be all the contracts under the fatherhood as well as the adolescent. However, if some of those contracts are also for providers that are school-based, just because the gap, what we were hearing in that hearing is that the gap is also in the schools, and teachers already are doing way too much, and DOE doesn't have the capacity for this type of financial literacy education. So hoping that some of those awards are going to providers that are also school-based, so it's kind of linking these different agencies and where the gaps and needs are.
I will also add that under our fatherhood initiative, that is part of their curriculum. Like, that's part of their curriculum to provide financial literacy to the dads. It's part of our high school curriculum under CSBG for NDA. And it's also part of we have a NDA economic development. That program also is required to provide financial literacy workshops. And so that is, I just wanted to expand on that a little bit. But so we're making sure that we are trying to have that across the board, but definitely it's embedded in our high school programs and definitely in our fatherhood and healthy families programs.
Sorry, I have a lot of questions tonight. This one is just brief, and I don't know if conversations have started around this, but I'm wondering, with the federal changes coming in January, if any conversation has been had about a backup plan for CSBG funds if there are changes.
Great question. A great question. We are having conversations internally, the administration is having conversations, and doing whatever we can, to, have figure out options and plans. I will say this, that this is not the first time, like, I've been working with community service block grant, CSBG funding for almost 20 years. And so this is not the first time it's been, like on the chopping block, or we're nervous about it. And so we will do what we always do, right? So we have our community, NABs, CABs, and they, we've lobbied, we've done things, right? So there's a plan, there's conversations happening, we're well aware that it's, it's something we need to be concerned about. And so I will say that we're definitely having those conversations internally. And as we can share more, we will.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now entertain a motion to accept the commissioner's report.
Motion to accept, Donovan Swanson.
Donovan, thank you. Seconded by? Ms. Pina, thank you for the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Anyone abstaining? So moved. The executive committee met on November 7th. The meeting began at 6:18. The committee members reviewed the meeting agenda for tonight's meeting. The motion was accepted. Then it was announced a review of the CSBG refunding application for fiscal year 2024. Kenneth Pierre, DYCD compliance specialist, began the presentation by stating the application must be filed each year in order to have the continued funding of the program. Artis gave a presentation on the fiscal side, and new this year is the requirement that minority and women-owned business enterprises be used for purchases of 50-50, 50% minority-owned, 50% women-owned. Mr. Pierre ended the presentation by asking for questions. There were no questions. Then there was the review of the CAB committee meetings. Mr. Hambrick reported on the governance committee. Ms. Tenenbaum review, on the strategic partnership committee, and Anita presented on the program committee. There was no new business, no old business, and the meeting was adjourned at 7:24 p.m. We'll now ask the Honorable Greg Hambrick to give the governance committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Governance Committee met on Wednesday, November 6th. As part of the agenda, we discussed the low-income sector vacancies and the process that's taken place in filling those vacancies. Election took place for Staten Island Region 19, where they elected Linda Walters, and some of you that have been on this board may know Linda has been nominated. My apologies. She's been nominated for this position, and you might remember Linda Walters served on this executive committee in a variety of capacities for many years, so excited to hear about that. We discussed the officer election, so we know that the vice chair position has been vacated, with Ariel taking on a new role. So Donovan Swanson, who represents the Brooklyn Borough President on this board, has put forward his name for the slate. So we will be voting on that directly after this report. So that was discussed. We discussed the absences. There were 13 absences excused, 13 excused absences. Despite that, we did have quorum last meeting, and we have quorum this meeting, so that's good to hear. Old business, just our chair just asked that people make it to the meeting on time. As you see, based on the dialogue, sometimes the meeting can take a little bit longer, which is the reason we're here on the board, because we want to share specific details. So the sooner we can start the meeting on time, the better, so we can accommodate people's input. New business, Anita introduced Georgette Neglia, am I pronouncing her name right? As a new staff member, she was on all of the committee meetings, so it was a pleasure to meet her. And the meeting was adjourned at 6:53 p.m. Any questions on the governance committee meeting? If not, I will entertain a motion now to accept the governance committee report.
Motion to accept, Maureen.
It's been properly motioned, seconded by our chair, Isaac Heschel. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposing, those abstaining, there being none.
So per the bylaws, while we have a candidate of Donovan Swanson, we call for nominations from the floor. If anyone would like to put their name in for the second vice chairperson position as a chairperson of the program committee. So, nobody wants to go up against Donovan, so. What? So, that being said, it's a pleasure to approve Donovan Swanson as now the second vice chairperson of the program committee. We will now have an official vote to accept Donovan Swanson. Motion to accept, Greg Hambrick, seconded by Susie wants a second. So Susie gets a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any nays? Anyone abstaining? So moved. Welcome aboard, my friend. And now if I can ask Donovan to come here and read the program committee report.
All right, thank you everyone. Good evening. So yeah, we had a nice programs meeting. Sorry, because I'm trying to remind myself as I'm reading this. We talked about immigration and comprehensive services, immigration families located in Brooklyn. The program serves families that are new immigrants and includes families that have been in the United States for up to 8 years. The center's been open since 1978. It's located in Sunset Park. The program includes emergency food pantry that served last year 76,000 meals to about 3,000 families. It was open all throughout the pandemic and expanded services and home deliveries for those experiencing food insecurity, which we know increased specifically during the pandemic. They also offer free tax preparation programs, and soon they will be able to help even more families now that the income limit threshold has increased up to $93,000. So they'll be able to help more families for free during tax season. This is a year-round program for people who are self-employed and who have small businesses to help with them through their taxes. They also have mental health referrals and they support also with child care vouchers to those traditionally through HRA and ACS. They also have adult employment programs, job readiness and placement assistance. They also offer adult literacy programs, ESO classes for individuals 18 and over. And again, a number of other services, including after school, summer camp, summer youth employment. And these programs, folks did ask for clarity. They do serve both immigrants as well as non-immigrants. No old business, no new business, and we adjourned at 6:26 that night.
Well done. Motion to accept the committee report,
Motion to accept, Marty.
seconded by Sabrina. Thank you for the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Anyone abstaining? So moved. Last but not least, we ask Susie to be so kind and present the Strategic Partnership Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. So my colleague Donovan Swanson was doing double duty this past month, so I want to thank him for covering for me. I had a civic engagement the night of our Strategic Partnership Committee meeting, and he chaired. It took place Thursday, October 31st. And we had a presentation on the 2024 Summer Youth Employment Program, SYEP, given by Dior Lunsford, Senior Program Manager, Workforce, DYCD. So I'm just gonna, I think most of you are very familiar with the SYEP program. I'll just share a few highlights. Ms. Lunsford began by telling everyone that the presentation would include both SYEP and the Work, Learn, Grow programs. So SYEP is the nation's largest youth employment program. Youth are connected to a paid work experience or a paid work and learn-based program, depending on their ages. Participants are exposed to different career paths, which help them make informed decisions about their future careers or whatever additional education they choose in the future. The SYEP program is open to youth and young adults between the ages of 14 and 24. They're paid $16 per hour directly through DYCD, and that's important because employers should know DYCD pays for the young people who work for them over the summer. And over 100,000 youth were employed this past year. There are in-person, hybrid, and virtual options available with supportive supervision, so that's also important for employers to know. So that was SYEP. Now the Work, Learn, Grow program turns the SYEP into a year-round experience for participants. The youth work on their career aspirations and work readiness while receiving academic support from the provider, and they also have the option of receiving one college credit through the DYCD's partnership with Kingsborough Community College, and it's open to young people with a GPA of 65 or more. Currently it's a smaller program because it's a year-round program. Currently there are only 7,000 participants. Sounds like a lot compared to 100,000 in SYEP. It's relatively small cohort. And there are certain criteria to join the Work, Learn, Grow program that you can learn more about. DYCD is always recruiting employers both for SYEP and Work, Learn, Grow. CAB and NAB members are encouraged to refer any businesses and organizations, large and small ones, to apply and participate in these programs that shape the next generation of New York City youth. So really, really informative presentation. The committee then heard an NAB membership report from Susan Patterson, the Director of Strategic Outreach here in the NAB unit and DYCD, and these numbers are always very important. Out of a total of 492 seats on NABs, a total of 266 seats are filled. 55% of the seats are filled. That's good, but it's not good enough. The direct appointments by DYCD total 199 members, and the elected official recommended appointments total 67 members. DYCD staff has been doing lots of tabling to increase recruitment. However, more work needs to happen to get the elected officials to make recommendations. This is something we talk about at all of our committee meetings. We have some very lively conversations about it. In the old business, I'm so happy to report, because this is something we have wanted for a long time, thanks to Anita and her team. Staff are working with DYCD administration to create a discussion board for CABA and NAB members to make recommendations on board recruitment strategies. In other words, so we can communicate with each other in between meetings and share best practices on how we can get more vacancies filled. What's working in your communities, maybe what you're doing will work in my community. So we're going to have a mechanism to communicate now in between meetings. Very excited to hear more about that. Thank you, Anita and your team. Dr. Swanson asked for a motion to adjourn, and the meeting was adjourned at 5:46 p.m. Thanks.
Thank you, Susie, for your report. We'll now entertain a motion to accept the report. Motion to accept.
Motion to accept, Mari Moss.
Mari Moss, seconded by?
Second, Lydia Lapina.
Ms. Pina, thank you for the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Anyone abstaining? So moved. Moving along, the CSBG annual report for fiscal year 2024, Kathleen Al-Nazar and Judith Sam will give the report, and I ask that the questions afterwards should be please kept really short, as it is almost 7:30 already.
Good evening. I'm Kathleen Almanzar, Senior Director for Literacy and Immigrant Services. We're going to go through the fiscal year 24 CSBG enrollment and outcomes, and I'm joined by Judith Sam. So Community Service Block Grant dedicates itself to promoting self-sufficiency among low-income New Yorkers through various citywide initiatives, as well as the revitalization and reinvestment into the 41 neighborhood development areas in which they live. So just so you know that the Community Service Block Grant Act is a federal law that provides funding to states to support programs aimed at reducing poverty by assisting low-income individuals and families through services like employment training, housing assistance, and financial literacy. This is the act, so this is not exactly DYCB's program areas. It's allowing states to tailor these services based on their specific community needs. Essentially, it's a block grant program focused on poverty alleviation. And this is just the different stages of the Community Block Grant. And then I'm going to hand it over to Judith, where she's going to speak about the programs that she oversees.
Hey, good evening. All right. So I'm going to walk you through, describe a little bit about programs, and then walk you through this graph you see on the screen, all right? So our NDA high school programs engage youth in grades 9 through 12 in programs that will support them and encourage them to attain academic achievement, right? We do this through project-based learning, through tutoring, academic support as well. We have about 28 program sites across the 5 boroughs. So in terms of our enrollment and outcomes report for 2024. As you can see, we achieved enrollment. So we enrolled 1,322 out of the projected enrollment of 1,211. In terms of those youth that completed their internships, 1,254 youth completed their 60 hours of internship out of the 807 that was projected. Let me just try to scroll down a little bit. Okay. And then for those youth that improve SEL skills, we have a total of 678 out of the 807 that was projected. And then I'll go through all the program areas, is that okay? And then if you have questions afterwards, we'll take questions? Okay. So that's our high school educational support MBA programs. Sorry, this is not in a PowerPoint, so we have to scroll. Okay. So for our senior service programs, we provide a range of services for adults age 60 and over. We provide benefits and services. We help seniors attain benefits and services, as well as providing recreational activities for our seniors. We have about 9 senior programs across the 5 boroughs. And as it relates to the enrollment for 2024, we had 1,256 out of the projected 1,350. For those seniors that attained benefits and services, we had 612 out of the projected 675. For those seniors who reported an outcome of improved well-being, we had 443 out of 270 that was projected. And then for those seniors that achieved an outcome of self-advocacy skills, we have 335 out of 270. Now for our NDA Economic Development Program. So our Economic Development Program, we have about 18 programs across the 5 boroughs, I think minus Staten Island. Yeah, minus Staten Island. So basically our Economic Development Program provide TA to those existing small business owners, entrepreneurs, or aspiring entrepreneurs that are looking to start a business within their NDA. And we also support those existing small businesses maintain or expand the services the businesses that they have within the NDA. So with that said, the actual enrollment for 2024 was 825 out of 998 that was projected. In terms of outcomes, for those participants in our economic development programs that developed business skills, we have 176 out of the projected 53. And for those who actually created a job, we have 147 out of the 38 projected. Just keeping, what we're gonna do is, I think the percentages are a little off, just based off of my calculation in my head, but we'll definitely send you an updated number with the actual percentages. But in terms of the outcomes achieved, I think we're okay. Now, NDA's safety awareness and crime prevention. Our Assistant Commissioner, Ebony Jordan-Wilson, mentioned it a little bit about that. We have 3 providers that provide their services, and basically what they do is they recruit individuals from the community, and they work with them to identify whatever the community concerns are in that particular community, and they work with those members as well as volunteers that come in to address that particular issue. It could be anything from gun violence to a wide range of issues, and and so they work with these members from the community as well as volunteers
on a project, and then they implement that project to help bring awareness to whatever the concerns or issues are for that particular community. Okay? So as far as the outcomes, so the cohort members for crime and safety, or safety awareness and crime prevention, the actual cohort members were 150 out of the 302 that was projected. In terms of volunteers, you know, we struggled a little bit in 2024 with really recruiting volunteers. The actual was 4 out of the 25. And then in terms of increased leadership skills, so they provide training and workshops to those cohort members, as well as some of the volunteers. And we had 9 out of the projected 25. Okay. Now, Healthy Families. So our Healthy Families is a case management program or service that we provide throughout the 5 boroughs. And the goal of that is to really assess what the family needs are and help them attain those benefits and services. So for actual enrollment for the 2024 year, we had 5,616 out of the 6,030 that was projected. For those who actually receive benefits and services, we have 5,103 out of the 3,763. For those who stated that they attained self-advocacy skills, we have 1,686 out of the 1,254. Okay, last but not least on my end is fatherhood. As you know, in 2024, we had 7 fatherhood programs throughout the boroughs. Out of the 7, we have 1 that's citywide, so that covers all 5 boroughs. You know, our fatherhood initiative works with non-custodial fathers, 18 and over, provide them parenting skill workshops, supports around their child support, hearings, help them with also attaining some types of benefits and services that they come in asking for. So with that said, the actual enrollment for fatherhood for 2024 is 960 out of the 1,426 projected. In terms of those fathers who increase engagement and financial support, we have 852 out of the 713 that was projected. And for those fathers who attain services through our fatherhood programs, we have 657 out of the 856 that was projected. Okay. Any questions? Or do you want
Any questions? Thank you very much for your review.
I have a question.
Excuse me?
Meaning our father is paid for,
I'm sorry, can you repeat? I'm not understanding the
I'm
question.
reading it, it's fatherhood, based on what?
You want to know a little bit more about what the program is about?
Yes.
All right, so basically, the Fatherhood Initiative supports non-custodial fathers. So the program is designed to engage those fathers who do not have primary custody of their child or children, and provide them with supportive services.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Susie Tanner, member of President Richard's office. Question about projections. First of all, this was an excellent presentation, thank you. But a question about projections. How do you calculate your projected numbers? Because I notice sometimes the actual numbers are like 300% above the projections. Sometimes it's just 16%. So what is the measurement?
Right, so the projections varies per contract or per program. So every provider who has a contract may have a different, what we call slot allocation. And a slot allocation is basically how many people they're going to serve on an annual basis. So in some cases, one provider may have, and I'm just throwing a hypothetical number out there, 300 slots. So
so that means they have to engage 300 individuals, right? So based on that 300 number, they'll project every quarter how they're gonna meet enrollment. So they could say, hey, quarter one and quarter two, we're gonna enroll 100 people each, and then it may be less in quarter three and then up higher in quarter four. But at the end of the program year, they have to meet that total enrollment number of 300.
So these like cumulative projections are based on
On
the
the-
contract?
On the, all the entire contract, or all contracts, all programs, yes.
Thank you.
Mhm. All right. If there aren't any other questions specifically on the NDA areas, I'm just gonna touch base briefly on 2 other program areas. I don't have full details on this, but I'm presenting on behalf of our capacity building and our workforce. So our capacity building unit provides family development credentialing, and majority of our NDA programs, the staff, especially if they're considered a case manager or FBC coach, go through this process of credentialing, right? So in 2024, we received 157 applications out of the 150 that were projected to apply. And then those who actually, I'm assuming this completed the FBC credentialing, we have 112 out of the 117 that was projected. And then our summer youth employment program, everybody knows what that is, right? Okay. It's the most popular program area, right? So according to Youth Force, they met 100% of the actual enrollment, and they met 100% of actual achieved job experience. And as you know, both Summer Youth and FBC are partially funded through CSBG funding. All right, I'll pass it on to Kathy.
We also have the technical assistance.
Sorry, forgot one more slide. And then TA. So technical assistance is also, okay, it's also part of our capacity building unit, and they provide TA to our funded providers. So out of the 4,802 those people that, or providers that applied, 4,802 people actually applied out of the projected 2,051. And then those who gained skills, the actual was 1,487 out of the 1,390 that was projected. Any questions?
I'm curious about, I mean, I don't understand the difference between the two, but there seems like a lot of drop off between those who applied and those who gained skills,
right,
and what that difference means.
Right, there could be various reasons. So either they didn't complete the course or the training. So I think it's mainly that. It's a matter of people applying in the beginning, but either they don't show up, and or they possibly don't complete the training. Okay. Thank you again. I'll pass it.
Hi, sorry, Donald Swanson, Borough President's Office, really quickly. Great presentation. I think without any recommendations or learning from this, it kind of falls by the wayside. The numbers look good, but contextually, what is DYCD learning in regards to where there's gaps? So I think it'd be helpful, not now, for next time you guys present on this, what are some recommendations that are coming internally from DYCD that we're learning, or gaps, or again, there just needs to be space for us to kind of contextualize these numbers, because otherwise I guess it sounds good. So just again, I think recommendations, learning, is there a specific provider, a specific borough that we're seeing challenges? I would love to kind of see that within this presentation. Thank you.
Right, so one thing I will tell you, so let's say a provider doesn't meet their contractual numbers, we actually have site visits during the year, they're monitored. So during the year, So let's say in the beginning of the year, they're not meeting their numbers. We have a conversation with them, depending on how severe that is. They can go into what's called a strategic action plan. So, and we call that SAP. So when you hear somebody say SAP and CAP, so then, so we coach them, we find they have to give us a plan, how they're gonna fix this, how they're gonna get those numbers up. Then, as we move on, if it doesn't improve and it continues to decline, then we go into corrective action. So we do work with them, we ask them, why are these numbers low? When we report to the state on a quarterly basis, if our numbers are even high, if they're too high or too low, we've got to justify. We've got to say to the state why. So we can't just say, oh yeah, here's our numbers, this is great. So even high numbers, we have to justify where did the high numbers come from? Where did the low numbers come from? So we engage in conversations. It has led to providers giving up their contract. It has led for DYCD to take the contract back from them, because at this point it causes severe consequences at the end of the year, because they get what's called a performance evaluation, and a negative performance evaluation can actually hurt them citywide when it comes to getting city funding. So, we do, all of that has all been done behind. So I would say if you're looking for something like that, maybe it's more of what do we do when we're too low? What do we do? Like, I don't know if going in step by step and pointing out the bad actors, I don't know.
I'm just asking for
Yeah.
views. Let's pull, because that's not public. Let's
Right.
pull that and let's see that within.
Right. Right, so, so that's, right, so that's the other thing. So one of the things that they get referred to technical assistance. So they can get referred for various, depending on what is the issue, right? So we do the best that we can to help them come back up, but sometimes, no matter what we've done, it's not salvageable. I will tell you, it is a lot more work for us to defund somebody than to give them TA. TA is better. There's a lot of work involved when you have to say, hey, no more, because then you've got to now replace them. We're not going to leave no services in the neighborhood. And, we don't want to leave them without the services. So we are looking immediately, if we have to, replace them. And sometimes that's not easy. Yes?
Yeah, I have a question. In some instances, the projections were a lot less than the outcome. So in that case, because if you service more people than you originally intended to, that costs more money. So what does DYCD do in that case? I projected 50, but I served 100 people.
So unfortunately, we cannot increase their contract. So that's where you do have some people who will stick to, if my contract says I have to serve 50, they may not surpass 50. Sometimes they will surpass 50 because you may have to enroll more people because you have people who will drop out. You will have somebody who will enroll and 2 weeks later, they're gone. And because of barriers, they got a new job, their work schedule changed, they no longer have a babysitter. Things get in the way, so you have people drop off. So when they drop off, if you have that counted as an enrollment, less people, then you may not meet your outcome number. So it's sort of like some of them over-enroll to cover that gap for the people who drop out.
In case people
But
drop
also
out.
some of them over-enroll because they're just that great and they're able to provide the extra services. We do have some people that do exceed their numbers.
Thank you.
And what you're seeing, these numbers are for the entire portfolio. Okay, so this is not on an individual basis. Thank you. You're very welcome. So adolescent literacy, it serves the youth that are in middle school, so that is targeted 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. They are, most of their work is all project-based, and they're working towards, literacy problem. So one of the things that we do see as a competing problem for our adolescent literacy providers is that some kids see it as a program being labeled as, well, I'm slow and I got put into this reading class. I want to be in Compass because they have fun. That's fun all the time. I just have to do a half hour of homework help and let's move it on. So adolescent literacy sometimes struggles But this is also the old model. The new model is supposed to be nice and fun. So our new model is doing a lot of digital portfolios. They've got to do, they're doing, we have an agency that is going to do this whole literacy through debate. Okay, so we have a bunch of new players in this. So I'm excited that maybe next year when I come and do this report again, I'm gonna give you some better numbers. You know, so they are, all of our new programs though, that just started on July 1 are off to a slightly slow start because they're all still acclimating and getting their staff into play. But, you know, last year they were supposed to enroll 178, they hit 151, so that was at 85%. And then the educational outcomes, so that was a little harder to get for the mere reason is that under the old model, we were waiting for ELA scores. So because this program, it was the end of the program year, it was hard to get the providers to give us those scores because basically it was contract's done, I'm good, you don't fund me anymore, I don't have time to give you the rest of this. So it's unfortunate, but we did have a great adolescent literacy event where the kids performed poetry. And it was lots of fun. We did that in June of last year. It was lots of fun. We brought a lot of the kids out of their shells. So, you know, adolescent literacy is, you know, it's there, it's up and coming, and we do hope to have another event sometime in April. We're still grasping at whether we're going to do something that they're going to run workshops themselves as young people, or we're going to go and do another show of some poetry and, you know, and some art. So we'll, you know, we will see. We will see. We do have some videos, so we could probably show you some of the videos that were played on loop during that adolescent literacy. We could share that with you all at a later date. Okay. So NDA. Oops, sorry. So this is our NDA adult literacy. So this is the one sole contract that was awarded for Bronx NDA 2. So when the needs assessment happened, it was just one agency. They were projected to enroll 83. They only got 42. And then we had the projected educational gain of 42, but only 16 achieved that. The biggest thing that the provider said that most of the people were looking for Benno ESOL services in that neighborhood, or they were looking for the ABE HSC in Espanol. And that was something that they did not have the capacity to do and to shift to do that, because you sort of have to have that expertise in providing the classes in Spanish. So unfortunately, they did at the end of this year, they did give up the contract. So we are in the midst of trying to find a replacement, but so far it's been very challenging to get that.
Just one quick question. What was the language or the language of the provider that they weren't focused on Spanish?
No, because they don't have the expertise. So in order to provide ABE, HSC, and Espanol, you have to have the expertise, you have to have the teachers and the capacity to do that.
So they already got the contract and...
Well, here's the thing. They thought that that the need was for just the regular ABE, HSC. But when they got into excuse me? English, right. So the thing is that when we put out the RFP, we don't put it out and say we're doing Espanol here, we're doing this. It's for ABE, HSC. It's when you get your contract, then you can offer your expertise. We do have a few, very few, but under the literacy RFP, we have a few that are doing that because they've been doing it for many years. It's an expertise that you have to have.
How do we determine a need? And that's my last question.
So the needs assessments. This is not yet a whole needs assessment process, and the community fills out surveys, and based on the surveys, and then, you know, this is what this, and then the needs are ranked. They're all ranked and then funded. Okay. All right. So next is our ESOL. So this is so as you see, under CSBG, we only funded 2,601. We exceeded that. ESOL is always our big deal.
every which way we go. It's very hard that there's any underperformance in ESOL. Pre-test participants are all pre-tested, and we had a projected outcome. So one of the things that we want to remember, if your enrollment is higher and your students stay in, your projected outcome usually winds up becoming higher. So, and then also, this is a program where they do over-enroll because people do leave. And that's because of life happening. A job, childcare, I moved, so we do see, students that do drop out, So that's why some of the over-enrollment occurs. Immigrant workers, so this is a program that, this is a program that moved over from HRA last year. And basically they teach the immigrant worker how to advocate for themselves, how to go into small claims court and take your employer in if they're for wage theft, or they have issues with overtime, sick days, and etc. So they were required to enroll 324. They hit 319, which is at 98%. The self-advocacy skills, they were supposed to, so the self-advocacy skills are taught through peers. They do workshops, so someone who has already gone through the program is the one leading that and telling them how to fight for your rights. So they met at 299, actually met that goal, which is 123%. And then the achievement of personal goals. So that is more of taking your your employer actually to court. So that sometimes is not easy. And we are looking for, in this type, we are looking for a positive outcome, that they've gone and they've actually succeeded in getting back wages. Services for immigrant youth. So this is directed towards youth that, I hate mouse pad, sorry. I'm not too good with it. All right, so services for immigrant youth, you are dealing with unaccompanied minors and youth that are in foster care. So that's why you have quite a different set of benefits, different types of outcomes. So they were supposed to serve 191. We had 141 enrolled. Part of that was an issue with a new rule that came in for CSBG where they had to prove income eligibility. For most of these kids who are in foster care or unaccompanied minors, they don't have that proof. And the rules sort of didn't get finalized until late, halfway through the year, so it did contribute to the lower numbers. But benefits and services were delivered for the youth that were in, that are unaccompanied minors. And the key point to most of this is actually filing for an immigration status. So out of 119.71, and this is actually a pretty hard category to file because there's a lot of factors before you can actually file. So a lot of our providers spend more time establishing information and gathering proof before they can actually file. So it's a very labor intensive. So we do expect lower outcomes on that. So this is services for legal services for immigrants. So this is basically basic application filing, and they do dabble in a little bit of representation, which is very hard. So most of the focus is on basic application assistance. Once again, the numbers are a little low. It was a lot of people were pretty leery about providing actual proof of income. So that was a little hard depending on their work status and how they were being paid. Same thing with proof of address. If they're renting a room, the person who they rent from did not want to give them a letter and proof of address. So we did have a delay, and numbers were lower in that category. So NDA, immigration application assistance, that is just simple. I
And I hate using them. I have a laptop, I have a mouse. That's what I use. Next time I'll bring my mouse. So NDA application assistance, we had a projected enrollment of 1382, and we had 1017 of the actual enrollment. Now here's where I will not use the excuse of income eligibility. I will say we had a provider with high numbers perform very poorly, which actually truly dragged these numbers down. I mean, down. So they have been struggling with site, with having the appropriate staffing, because this is not that you can hire anybody. You have to have you have to be BIA accredited, Board of Immigration Appeals accredited, or you have to be an attorney that has experience with immigration law. You have to have professional liability in excess of $1 million. There's a lot of things involved. And also them getting a site within their NDA was always, it has and still continues to be a struggle. So if you're not stable, you don't have a site, you really can't service the people. People need to be able to find you to do that. So, so that I would say, so because over a 300 mark was missed, you could definitely say here that that's what contributed also to the lower outcomes. You know, although based on what we were projected, they did almost meet that, but you know, that's where you have your buffer. You know, and there, you know, so that overall of 1382, we were expecting at least 60% of that 1382 to make it. That's, you know, we had a projected percentage. So in some program areas, there's actually set projections of what is the expectation. ESOL? Okay. All right, so immigrant and ESOL services. So once again, we've got it, it's ESOL, civics with the context of civics. This is, we were supposed to enroll 1246 and 1041. This did attribute to the income eligibility, but we did have a great number of people get the outcome. And then immigrant families, they were anticipated to serve 302 families. We had 294 that were enrolled. We have 80% of self-advocacy skills, and we have the achievement of personal goals at 107. So that is that. And then we have the victims of domestic violence and trafficking. They were supposed to enroll 278. That program is helping them with immigrant services, so just to establish their immigrant services status, and then also they're helping them obtain a safe environment. Okay, and that is it for me. Any questions? Because I know we're also hitting overtime, and I know people need any questions. Feel free if later you have any questions and you want to send us an email, you can email us.
What I would tell everybody who's still here, come to the program committee meeting, come to the strategic partnerships committee meeting. You will hear detail and be able to ask all kinds of questions with all of our programs.
Thank you, Kathleen. And you can ask them offline.
And you can ask them offline.
Anita has our contact information.
Thank
If you ever
you.
want to send us anything,
Provided with.
Thank you for the CSBG annual report for fiscal year 2024. We'll now entertain a motion to accept the report. Motion to
accept, Mary Moss.
Mary Moss, seconded by Tina. Thank you for the second. All those in favor say aye. Any nays? Anyone abstaining? So moved. Very quickly, old business, you all signed the whistleblower quorum reminder. We would greatly appreciate that people show up on time so we don't end up running so far behind.
The whistleblower was in the packet that was sent to you, required by the state. Right.
And they signed it.
To everybody once a year.
New business, next CAB meeting in full is Thursday, January 30th, 2025. We're a week away from Thanksgiving. Want to wish everybody a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. And next month is Hanukkah and Christmas, and then the coming of the new year. So happy holidays, happy new year. Thank you everyone for attending, for the excellent questions, for the presentations, and for Anita and crew to ensure that we have quorum. Thank you all. We'll now entertain a motion at the late hour of 8:06 p.m. to adjourn this meeting.
Motion to adjourn, seconded by Martin.
Anyone, any nays? All those in favor say aye. Any nays, anyone abstaining, so moved. Have a wonderful evening, thank you.
I want to